Hello, folks. I'm Andy Oliver, and for the next couple of weeks or so, I'm the Minister of Pastoral Care at Portland First United Methodist Church. As many of you may know by now, I accepted a position with Lutheran Community Services in their restorative justice program. I thought it might be a bit helpful to explain a little bit about what this means, what it is that I'm actually getting into. Um, Lutheran Community Services is a nonprofit that, among other things, is working with adults and youth who have committed crimes or been harmed by crime and yet are seeking a way forward that doesn't follow a traditional criminal justice approach. People who've been harmed should have their needs front and center when addressing the harm done to them. Their voices and what they need should be centered. A traditional criminal justice approach to crime doesn't do that, instead replacing the person harmed with the state. A traditional criminal justice approach asks three questions: what laws were broken, who broke them, and how can we punish them? A restorative justice approach to crime asks different questions. A restorative justice approach to crime asks what happened, who's been affected and what has been the impact, and what needs to happen now to make things right. A traditional criminal justice approach wants to either punish people to coerce them not to do the crime again, or to punish people as a deterrent to others in the community so that they themselves will not commit similar behavior in the future. In contrast, a restorative justice focuses on the needs that were created by the crime. It focuses on the person who is harmed and learning from them what they need, and then involving the person responsible in meeting those needs. For example, sometimes when a person has been hurt by someone else, they want to know why they were hurt. Why did this person hurt them? Were they targeted? Was it random? They want the person who hurt them to accept responsibility and own up for what they did. But none of that must take place or even is the focus of a traditional approach to crime. Part of what happens when the police or the district attorney's office or the courts get involved is that they take charge and the person who is harmed stops being important. In essence, the criminal justice system says, we got this. We know what to do when people commit a crime. We will let you, person harmed, know if we need anything from you, but we'll be in charge now. We get to decide what to do from this point forward. But notice how the person who is harmed loses power and control with such an approach. They no longer get a say, even though they were the ones hurt and thus the ones with the most at stake. The state becomes a victim, and the legal system begins to serve the law, not the person harmed. What if a victim does not wish to punish a person, but simply wants the other person to acknowledge the pain they've caused? Think about this when it comes to Jesus and the way he approached harm and injury. Jesus always told the truth when it came to hurt and pain. He always told the truth when people were hurt and who it was that caused the pain. For example, the way rich people oppressed poor people, charging interest or making it impossible to get out of debt, or showing how hurtful religious people could be by their works righteousness. Or even in his own crucifixion, never denying the pain of it or the guilt of the people who caused the pain. Jesus chooses to forgive those who are putting him to death because they are guilty of the crime of killing an innocent man. Otherwise, there would be no need to forgive them. Jesus chooses to forgive people. This is not an act of passivity, but rather an act of power. Jesus is not stripped of power. He's exercising power, but in a different way. Not a power of violence, but a power of love. When Jesus is resurrected from the dead, he does not seek vengeance, but peace. When a Christian seeks to respond to injury through love and not vengeance, they are following in the footsteps of Jesus. There are many different ways that love is expressed when one has been harmed. When Jesus says things like, love your enemies, he does not deny the existence of enemies. He's very clear that there are people who cause harm. What he does do is give people power and agency. Jesus does not take away power from someone who has been harmed. Rather, he offers people the possibility of taking power back and using it for something other than punishment. Our role as the church is not to take power away from those who have been harmed by telling them they can only passively sit on the sidelines while the state takes over. Rather, our role is to point to Jesus, who actively brings the power of love to bear when it comes to injury. Our role is to come together, seeking the power of the Holy Spirit to form us into the kind of disciples who know how to use the power of love in a world of injury. We cannot force victims to forgive, and that should not be our role, nor is that the role of restorative justice. But we do ask very good questions about what is it that this person needs, and how can we as a community help to meet the needs while involving the person who caused those needs to exist in the first place. So I'm thrilled about entering into this new vocation, and I'm saddened because after 5.5 years of serving with y'all, it means I'll need to take my leave. I have a lot of confidence that Pastor Karen, Pastor Ethan, and our expanding congregational care team will be able, in the meantime, during this discernment process, to address congregational needs as we figure out, as y'all figure out as a community, how best to move forward in meeting congregational needs. My last Sunday is December 11th. I'll be preaching that Sunday, and I hope between now and then, or on that date, we'll get a chance just to at least say goodbye to each other. It has been a privilege to serve y'all. I'm lucky to have done it. And so God's speed and God's blessing upon you. Bye-bye.